I want to welcome our audience to the Power of Connection. I'm so happy to have you here, Matt. It's been a little while since I've seen you, and it's always such a pleasure.
Yeah.
I originally met Matthew Seifer several years ago because he did something that I thought was super cool and super interesting. He was teaching a class on active shooter training. And at that time, and is continuing on, there's a lot of these, mass shootings. And I remember him saying, we train our children what to do if there's a fire, but we don't ever train them on what to do if there is an active shooter. So I so applaud you. He's done some great things since then. I want to get his full story, but I have to read you something very cool. So he is a qualifying officer, lead investigator of Guardian Security and Investigations, owner, operator, school director, and instructor of Guardian Security Services and Training, New York State Division of Criminal Justice Service, certified security firearms instructor, NRA range safety officer and firearms instructor, pistol, shotgun, rifle, expert criminal defense investigator for county, state, and federal criminal courts of New York State Department of Education technical security instructor, registered compliance liaison officer for independent armed and armored car guard companies throughout New York State, compliance liaison officer for multiple religious organizations throughout New York State. Oh my goodness, Matt. New York State registered armored car guard, registered New Jersey licensed armed guard, licensed federal firearms dealer, New York State firearms dealer, and a United States Army veteran. Frequent guest commentator on nationwide local radio stations for active shooter events and situational awareness. Subject matter expert on use of force and less lethal defense products.
That's a lot.
Wow.
That is a lot. Holy cow.
It is a lot. And, you've become this expert, and I want to get into how you got there. But, years ago, you probably never thought this was what you would be doing.
No, not at all. I think when I first came home, became a civilian again, I really didn't acclimate to civilian life. I really, truly enjoyed the regimentation of being in the service. However, I wound up starting a very small security company, which morphed into what it is today and everything you just read out. Along the lines, what I'm doing now was not what I envisioned years and years and years ago. I think through opportunities that have been presented to me, people that I've met along the way, such as yourself, people that you've introduced me to, that I've taken counsel from, have helped propel the level of professionalism and the people I've aligned myself with to the level that I'm at now.
So this podcast is called The Power of Connection. And there are a couple reasons why. The first is I believe that our greatest assets are our network, our connections, and the people that not just the people that you meet, but the people that become part of your tribe, right? The people that are like you, that we're just attracted to.
A like-minded person.
Like-minded,
100%.
right?
Yep.
We have similar goals and
like looking to inspire others to succeed and helping them along the way to do so.
And when you find those people, you stick with them.
Yeah.
And when you find those people, you want to share with them the other people that have helped you along the way. So the power of connection is probably the biggest asset that any of us have. And second, because I have been a student of what makes people successful for years and years. And there's a recipe to it. One of those components is having a niche and having expertise, which clearly I have to say that you are the only person that I've ever known with that kind of qualifications, right? So that definitely makes you unique. But your passion for what you do and your unwavering, relentless grit. So, did anybody ever try to stop you in any direction you were going and telling you you're wasting your time?
Yeah, as far back as I can remember, even being a young adult, that the decisions that I made to get into this industry were frowned upon from family members. They never thought it would amount to what it is today. I took it with a grain of salt, took it from who it was coming from, and I wound up not paying attention to it, and I blazed forward.
And that's
here
a
we are.
hard thing to do, you know. So we see this kind of often. If you speak to people that achieve some level of success, somebody along the way, at least one or two people, are afraid that we're going to fail, and they try to keep us from failing. And you know what? Maybe that's not the right thing. It won't work. So there are 3 levels. I forget who said it. There are 3 levels of, you know, approval when you start on something. First, people say, "Oh, you're wasting your time. It'll never work," and then they say, "It may work, but it's gonna have a downside. It's gonna cost you a fortune. It won't amount to anything," or whatever other negative thing they can say. And the third is, "I always knew you would be successful." So getting from the first one to the third one, that's the tricky part, right?
Yeah. Having the grit that it takes to be self-employed, it's not for the faint of heart
No.
in any way, shape, or form. Along the way, being able to pivot and accept criticism from others, constructive criticism, when you accept that constructive criticism, I found that it helps you propel into a much more of a professional, more polished arena. And when you're able to associate with others in that arena, the level of success typically comes right behind that as well.
So you have to surround yourself with people that
Absolutely,
are
100%.
like-minded and have achieved a certain degree of success themselves.
And in the same accord, there aren't that many people out there that have that mindset. It's something that you have to have the intestinal fortitude to deal with it, because there's a lot of ups and downs. The more success, sometimes, you know, the more issues pop up. Nevertheless, if you surround yourself with professional people that can handle the issues, if you're unsure how to, you know, tread that water, if you will,
Right.
and you trust that person, like I trust you, they will help you solve those issues.
They say that you don't have to know everything, you just have to know who to call.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's not what you know, it's who you know,
Yeah.
without a shadow of a doubt. And like in court, when we take cases to trial, when I'm working as a defense investigator, it's not what we know, it's what we can prove that
Right.
someone is innocent. And you can know everything in the world, but if you can't prove it, there's nothing behind that whatsoever.
So how did you get into that defense investigator? You know, how did that happen for you? Did you haps upon it, or did you plan on it?
It was organic in my industry. At the time, I was looking to delve in as many arenas as I possibly could. I had a
Clearly, you've done that.
yeah, I had an appetite for wanting to be part of something that not everybody would be able to be a part of. So, you know, I aligned myself with my license and the county had opened up an opportunity for investigators to work alongside with criminal attorneys. I became a subject matter expert in the use of force. Along those lines, when people were arrested for using force in self-defense, attorneys would then tap on me to give them the verbiage that they needed to understand to present a formidable defense. Along the way, one attorney from another attorney to another attorney to another attorney, and I started getting phone calls more and more from higher profile attorneys. I've worked with some really dynamite people who I've networked with over the last probably 15 years of my career, and I've seen some crazy cases, and I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's all based on the connections that I've made in this industry, without a doubt.
And so, would you say that, you know, once you make those connections, are you called upon to prove your integrity and character? Do they just pick anybody? Like, how do you make and maintain those high quality connections?
Being honest,
Yeah.
being transparent, and being honest, 100%.
Yeah.
If you're not honest and you're not transparent, and you're not able to back up what you say,
Yeah.
You won't get the calls.
So you have to have the goods.
Absolutely, 100%.
So,
Without a doubt.
So you start to do all these things, and you meet all of these people, and you're doing all this networking, and you're teaching, and you're training. So what else are you teaching? I mean, I read off that list of things, but
So again, organically in my industry, with being a private investigator, providing private, let's say, security-related services for high net worth people, that level of trust increases more and more with the people that you're networking with, and working with other professionals that I saw an opportunity to bring the law enforcement side aspect of the people that I've trained with into the private sector. And it allowed for a problem to be solved, whereas law enforcement understood what it took to go through critical dynamic emergency situations, where civilians, they needed another civilian to teach it to them because not everybody is aligned with law enforcement. Organically, over the period of time, especially right after Sandy Hook happened, which when you sat in on my active shooter Decide to Survive seminar, I touched very heavily on that. Right before my daughter was born, Sandy Hook happened, and I knew right then and there that I needed to impart what I've learned from law enforcement and be able to parlay that to civilians. So organically, through the understanding of working with other professionals, connecting with them, networking with them, and allowing myself to be open to being in an arena that was kind of like frowned upon, I dabbled in it. And again,
What do you mean by frowned upon? Tell me, go a little bit deeper.
coming from a civilian side, right? Even though I have my military experience, even though I have my training in security, my training in private investigations, and I've worked in the arena, along those lines, most people would entrust law enforcement. But law enforcement sometimes brings a little bit more of a brash aspect to it. It's not really polished. So I needed to bring it down a notch a little bit and parlay it to civilians where from one civilian to another, this is what you can expect going through a critical dynamic emergency situation. And in doing so and imparting my professionalism of the people that I've worked with, the industry that allowed for us to absorb this type of information and parlaying it out, it made it much more of a softer approach for civilians to understand it. I'm not standing up in front of people as a cop. I'm not standing there in front of people as a private investigator. I'm standing there as a parent. I'm standing there in front of you explaining this information that I've learned from law enforcement, but making it more palatable for civilians to understand.
And I think that's really the thing that struck me, because I know that somebody that's not, so my husband now, so you know him also, my husband is a retired detective. And he and I think very, very differently. That's probably a great thing. And just the stuff that he knows, I could never imagine to know. So he doesn't share a whole lot because he's retired, and I think that chapter has been closed. But I couldn't imagine to have lived through the stuff that he's seen. So every now and then he'll just come out with something, and I'll think, oh my goodness, I never thought of it that way. So I am not exposed, and nor have I seen the things he or you or other people have seen. I'm just Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farms over here, right? I don't know.
Look, people down the lens, people that are watching this, unless they've gone through an actual emergency situation like that, in that mindset, they haven't understood the physiological effects of fight or flight. Understanding the physiological effects in fight or flight and why we're able to defend ourselves, empowering others where if they are faced with that level of danger, if they make a decision to survive, the chances of survival rise instead of succumbing to the fear. And if you accept fear as a gift, like what I talked about in the class, your chances of survival are much, much greater.
Just so powerful. You're introducing things to people that need them, because you can never predict, right? This is not something that people plan on. It's like, at some point this is going to happen to me. It may never happen. God willing, it happens to nobody.
God willing, it never happens to anyone. But understanding that if you're able to utilize situational awareness and you really truly pay attention to what's going on around you, you pay attention to the noises that are behind you, you can potentially avoid danger. And having a 10-year-old now, which my daughter, she scares me. She does.
And I would think not much else does.
She's the only thing that truly does scare me. Along those lines, I made it a mission to make sure that anybody I came in contact with knew that my daughter is a warrior, and I'm raising her to be a respectful female warrior. Along those lines, if she were to be faced with that critical dynamic emergency situation, she's not going to be a deer in the headlights. And if she's going to go out, it's one of the things that I talk about, she's going to go out fighting. And she's going to go out fighting for her life. And she may even potentially save somebody else's life, too.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy. That's what I enjoy, imparting that knowledge to parents, to children, to making sure that they understand that they make the choice, not some bad guy makes the choice for them. Do you understand that?
I do. I do understand that, but that we have the power.
Yeah, the power. Again, the premise of this, power of connection, the power of making the decision to survive. And thinking about it and going through the dynamics of how it is that we can use situational awareness to provide that level of reassurance for ourselves. Okay, I'm safe for now. How am I going to get to that next level of safety? How am I going to get home? Along those lines, it's something that I found a passion in. I think out of everything I've ever done in my career, teaching is the best. I truly enjoy teaching. I think, the Facebook posts that you've seen, that I post all the time, I'm very proud of it. It's not about boasting. It's about being proud of my accomplishment, that I'm able to command audiences anywhere from 5 people to 300 people, 400 people, 500 people. And they listen. They listen because it's information that's not readily accessible to them at all times. And that's what I found my true passion in, is teaching.
So cool. And so would you have thought 20 years ago?
Nope. We started this conversation with this. I never envisioned myself being a teacher of and imparting wisdom and how people can survive dynamic emergency situations.
Just amazing.
I never in my wildest imagination thought I would.
Do you know anybody else who does that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's unique.
And, you talking to me about this secret sauce about success. Can you enlighten me a little bit?
Well, I wish that I had known 30 years ago, right? So some of the elements, everything comes from, the self-education of Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. So he was the predecessor for every Tony Robbins, every Jack Canfield, every big motivational speaker. And all of these pieces, let's say if I can say them. So you have to have a niche, you have to have unwavering determination, you have to have faith, you have to be willing to tell other people what you want to do, because it's other people that will end up helping you. You have to have grit, grind, faith. There's a couple more.
Let me add this. Do you remember when we first met? We first started talking, and I said to you, Chris, this is exactly where I need to be. And I remember we had seen each other at other networking events. And I was surprised to see you. You were surprised to see me. But we had that kindred spirit between the two of us. Having others being positive for you, you were like that cheerleader for me on the side, and it was amazing. I found it admirable. My wife found it admirable that somebody who I just met was a cheerleader and a proponent for what I'm doing. And the word spread because the people that you've introduced me to, Bill Corbett, helped propel my business to the next level.
But that's our obligation for each other.
Exactly.
Those of us that are like-minded thinkers that realize that. So for me, if I believe, and you've demonstrated, right? So as you get older, you have a certain sense of good and bad, and if somebody's fugazi or they're legitimate.
100%.
When I find someone that's doing something that's good and powerful and purposeful, I go out of my way to connect them with people that I think will help them.
You did.
That has happened to me many times, where someone has connected me with someone that might help me in whatever I was trying to achieve at the time.
You know what I found out about relationships like this, like our relationship, is that even the people that you may have wanted us to connect with, right, it may not work out because it's just two different places, two different people at the different wrong times. So that's not a bad thing, right? You just find out what's not working for you at that point. And then you move forward. You got to have that determination, got to have that grit. And then be able to fall back and say, you know what? This worked, this didn't work. I'm not going to do it again this way, because you're going to learn as you grow. You can't see failure, or you can't see something not working out as a failure. You just figured out a way it's just not going to work. Exactly. It's a lesson. It's a learning lesson.
Thomas Edison said he found, 1,000 ways or 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb or not to make electricity. It just goes to show you got to keep going. And historically, people that tried to do something or invent something or solve some kind of a problem, they stopped just short of the solution. They stopped just short of reaching it because it drained them, and they gave up. So part of failure is that you just can't quit.
No,
Like
no.
you only fail when you quit.
I think if you were to stop doing what you're doing because you kept failing, you just got to kind of figure out a different way to do it.
Yeah.
For me, it's been, and my wife and I, we talk about this all the time, getting us to the next level.
Yeah.
Right? I knew about 10 years ago that I needed to get myself, my business, my wife, our relationship, our children, all to the next level. And I was determined. And anybody who knows me knows that that is my mantra. I am determined because failure is not an option for me. Am I willing to fail at certain things? Yes, because it's going to be a learning lesson. But overall, complete failure is not an option for me.
Yeah.
It's just not. And with having the right people in my corner, again, you and I, we haven't seen much of each other, but
No.
we've stayed in contact with each other.
Yes. We had that little pandemic and all.
That
and-
little thing that,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I was a little busy for a while.
Yeah. And I was busy teaching. I was busy growing my business.
Yes.
I remember working out of the trunk of my car, literally running cases, surveillance cases, defense cases, and I had files in the back of my trunk, and I'd go from case to case to case. Now my office is absolutely gorgeous. You got to come see my office.
I will come.
You got to. I have a beautiful classroom where it's literally the hub for me, that I'm in my comfort zone when I'm standing in front of 30, 35 people, and they're just listening to me, and they're absorbing the information, and then I have them do teach backs as to what we just learned, the block of instruction, and they're able to verbalize exactly what I laid down for them. They picked it up,
Wow.
they absorbed it, and they're able to teach it back to me.
As a teacher, that's the greatest feeling.
Chris, honestly, as an instructor, anybody that's in that realm,
Yeah.
when you have a blank slate that you're able to fill that slate with knowledge, and that slate's able to parlay that knowledge to others, again, it is an unsurmountable amount of internal pride that I get from that, and from that alone. And again, 5, 6 years ago, I had no idea who you were.
Right.
And the information and the people that we put in touch with each other, you put me in touch with, I mean, it's transpired into what it is today. So I got to thank you.
Well, and I thank you because, every time we connect somebody and they take it and run with it, that just like your students teaching you back, that to me is, that's gold when we
like
can
I said,
do that for each other.
And like I said before, not all the connections are going to work out.
No.
People are at different places in their lives. However,
Oftentimes, I find that, especially when you talk about even in sales, right? So we meet people, we network, and we meet people. It may not be that person that you meet. It may be the person that they introduce you to, or that person introduces you to, that ends up being that perfect fit of a relationship, business-wise or otherwise. But you have to go. You have to be out there. You have to meet people.
You got to keep moving.
And you have to keep telling people, one of the things so I'm a giant fan of Jack Canfield, and one of the things that he says is you have to tell as many people as possible what it is that you want to achieve. Because people are way more good-hearted than some people like to believe. So if I knew that you needed this, or you wanted that, or you were aspiring to this, if in my life journey I meet somebody that I think is going to help you along the way, I'm going to connect you.
Make that connection.
And you would do the same, and a lot of
100%.
people would do the same thing. But if you didn't tell me what you were looking to achieve, and I didn't take the time to listen, how would I have helped?
If I wasn't able to open up,
Right.
if I weren't able to be pure and honest, if it wasn't honesty that was like literally pouring out of me,
Yeah.
and you weren't able to pick up on that, no one's going to know.
No.
One of the things too is that when you are pure and you are honest with other people that are like-minded will pick up on that. And they'll also prevent you from being taken advantage of. Like my wife. My wife is my best friend in the entire world. You know how much I love her, right? My wife is also one of my biggest protectors too. She can see things long before I can, and she's become more intuitive because I have a focus on the business where she sees the outlying potential issues that may come around, and she'll pull me to the side. And I know you, of all people, would do the same exact thing for me too, because you've had conversations with me about who to work with, who not to work with, and why to work with them, and why not to work with them. And it's worked. I think when you're open and you're raw and you're honest with people, and you put yourself out there, it comes back to you. It truly does. It truly, truly does.
I think that it takes a leap of faith to follow your gut.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very hard thing, especially, so you talk about the structure of the military. I mean, I've not been in the military, but I'm thinking that free random thinking is not really, it's not a thing.
Not at all.
So you leave the military and now you're on your own and you
I was
start
like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
I was a fish out of water. There was no regimentation. I was left on my own, came home, and I needed to figure it out on my own at a young age. I was 22, 23 at the time. I couldn't get used to civilian life. I tried college. College wasn't for me. I think I lasted all of about maybe a week and a half.
Yeah.
I got up, left my college schoolroom, and hit the streets. And for me, from that point forward, just networking with professionals, court officers, retired Department of Corrections officers, all forms of military, all forms of law enforcement, guys like your husband, and none of them really knew how to run a business, though.
No.
They had one mindset, one focus, get in, get out, and I understood that. But I needed to make money because
Right.
I had a bigger
Lawyers
plan.
and doctors don't know how to run a business either.
Very good. That's a very good point.
So.
That's a very good point.
It's
That's why they use the attorneys, the criminal attorneys use me to get them the evidence that they're looking for because they don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And that's why they have some little, usually little old lady in their office that knows how to run a business.
Everything.
To make sure that everything gets done. So you have what your focus is on. You could be an expert at what you do, but making a business out of it is really the hard part.
Yeah.
So how did you make a business out of that?
That's a good question. I think the easiest thing for me to understand was out of necessity. I knew that I could make money from doing what I do, and I needed to be generous with my time. Like even the active shooter presentation that I did that you came to, I didn't charge for any of that.
No.
We had a rather large audience that evening, and you have to be able to give of yourself so you can get back. And when you start to understand that mindset of giving of yourself, you can't be selfish with your time either. You have to be willing to give your time to others. I will say this, that since I started teaching the concealed carry weapons course to civilians, and we started going through the issues with people that are carrying firearms on a full-time basis now, it's a pretty scary thing. It's a very, very scary thing.
Tell me more.
So, a lot of people really shouldn't have possession of firearms. I will put it that way.
So, I for many years had my own business. I carried lots of money, and I thought to myself, my father was a huge NRA member. He was a former military man. He was a gun advocate. He taught me, as much gun safety as you could teach a little kid, right? Don't touch, don't this, don't that. And then he would teach me other different things. But I thought to myself, it's probably smarter for me not to get a weapon because somebody will grab it and shoot me.
You're asking for trouble. By having this on your side,
Yes.
what a lot of people don't understand is you're asking for trouble. By putting that deadly physical force on your side, and now you want to carry it full time, you're immediately asking for trouble. Because if you don't understand the physiological effects, just like I started off with active shooter, of what it takes to draw a firearm and use that firearm and understand that what's behind every round is an attorney. If you don't hit your intended target or use excessive force or your use of force wasn't valid or it was deemed inappropriate, there's major consequences that come along with that. And again, avid shooting, I get it. Going to the range, go hunting, I get it. But not a lot of people are qualified to carry a firearm. And since I started teaching this class back in September, Chris, I got to tell you, it's a scary thing. And when I say scary, it's physically one of those things for me that it's been an eye-opener for the types of people. And I sell guns. I sell them every day. Along those lines, the people that come in, I don't see them again. But the people that have come into the class and then I'm on the range with them, it's scary because I'm in a room with 20 people that have loaded firearms that I've never been around before. Whereas years ago, the only people that I operated with were operators, people with guns.
Right.
And there was a level of safety and trust there because I knew that they trained and I trained alongside with them. Now, I have to work through that idealism that, because they have the Second Amendment right, now they want to carry a gun full time. I get it. But there's so much more that comes along with it. and I'm able to parlay that knowledge, again, by networking with other people, pulling information as to what we feel is relevant, and putting that forth to civilians so they understand what it takes to carry a firearm full time. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
It truly isn't. But I enjoy it. I do. It's a little scary at times, but I enjoy it.
So you're in a room full of armed people that you don't really know, and they don't know how to use a gun.
The majority of them, the one,
Like,
so
that's not for me.
it's not really
You can do it.
I will say this: out of about, let's say, 1,500 people that I've had sit in front of me that have taken the classroom training, once they're on the range with me, there's an average of about 22% that will not qualify to carry their firearm because they just don't know how to use the gun the appropriate way or the right way. Issues that if you spoke to your husband, he'll tell you about too. Again, it's been an eye opener since September. My wife and I, we've been running and gunning and teaching these classes literally, teaching this class nonstop every weekend. It's been a blessing. It's been an eye opener. It's been a huge learning experience for me too, because as an instructor, I've learned from my students as to the lack of knowledge that they have, that the way the media has indoctrinated them, the way politicians have indoctrinated them, the way even video games have indoctrinated their mindset, their children's mindset as to the use of a firearm. I have to unwind all that.
Yeah.
And now
It's a lot to unwind.
it is. It's a tremendous amount. And typically the feedback, because again, at the end of the class, each class, one by one, I'll ask them, what'd you take away from this class? And in front of everybody, they all say it's completely different than what I thought. Completely different. Carrying a firearm is not for the faint of heart. Carrying that deadly physical force on your side, if you're going to use that firearm in defense of yourself or that of a third person because a felony is about to be committed or is being committed, or someone's running away that committed that felony, you have to understand what it takes to use that level of force, whether you decide to use deadly physical force inclusive of your firearm, or if you just put hands on someone.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. And there's so much more that goes along with this. That ball of yarn, once it starts to roll out, there's no pulling it back. And I give it to them in a sense, and I explain it to them in a sense that it's real. And there's a lot of questions and answers that go back and forth. And it's an open forum. And in my school, in my gun shop, there's no judgment at all. There's no judgment. I don't have preconceived notions. Now, granted, from the students that I've had, yeah, okay, it's a little shaky. But when you walk in and you have these predetermined mindset, it kind of is counterintuitive when you're trying to parlay new information to a student. The ones that are a little jaded, the ones that are a little set in their ways, those are the students that I have to work with a little bit longer.
So tell me about jaded or set in their ways. They come in thinking what?
They come in, they think that they understand everything it takes to carry a firearm. Now, when I explain to them, look, based on what the Supreme Court of the United States said, that the proper cause has now been removed as to how you're obtaining a firearm, nothing's changing except now they're letting us out of our cages outside of our driveways with a firearm. And now you want to carry that firearm full time. The same responsibility applied when before SCOTUS lifted the proper cause. You still had the same amount of responsibility. You still had the same amount of understanding what it is you can and can't do as far as use of force is concerned. But now the stakes are higher because now you're carrying your firearm. We're going to talk about mental health issues because this country has a mental health issue.
Absolutely.
And there's a big, huge component in my presentation that goes through mental illness. In that aspect, I talk about my own personal experience with one of my children that had thoughts of suicide, what my responsibilities were, what my role was as a parent, as a responsible firearms owner, what I needed to do immediately. And when I parlay that personal knowledge to the students that are sitting in front of me, it builds that connection. And typically, at the end of the class, people will come up and shake my hands because it's me sharing selflessly of myself and a personal experience as a civilian that had gone through that. So again, dealing with the issues of people's preconceived notions and people that think they know better, when you start to impart your own personal experience into what you are teaching and you build that level of connection with someone, it takes it to that next level, because then it's like, you know what? He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
100%.
And so, it's such a unique, special,
Yeah.
just, I couldn't imagine anybody else that doesn't have all of these qualifications, like, to do that. And thank God you're in the position to do that.
God has definitely blessed me. I'm not a holy roller per se, but God has definitely blessed me. I believe it has to do with my grandmother. It has a tremendous amount to do with my wife. It has tremendous to do with connection with you. I mean, granted, 5-6 years ago, before you and I met, I was just getting into the realm of teaching on a full-time basis. I was teetering whether or not I wanted to focus on investigations more, or if I wanted to become an instructor. And when I started getting the positive feedback, especially from you, I got to thank you again, especially from you. That sense of self-worth also was really starting to percolate for me. And when I could walk away from a class and I have students that come up to me and thank me and pull me to the side,
Yeah.
That is a testament all on its own.
Yeah.
It truly is.
I think that we're all led, we all develop these passions. And so as we discussed a little bit earlier, I had an illness a while back, and I didn't think, well, maybe it would be a good idea to document this. I had no choice. To me, I had no choice. I had to do it. It was my purpose. It was my passion. I couldn't not do it.
You stepped up to the bar, literally.
Well, but you did the same thing.
Yeah, I
And
stepped
so
up.
we all, and it's almost because, and I was talking to somebody else, a woman named Danielle Massey, who was a cancer survivor, and she now does this very cool thing called shadow work, but she couldn't not do it. She had no choice.
I remember right after Sandy Hook happened, my wife was pregnant with my daughter. My daughter was born literally to the day 3 months later. Seeing these horrific images coming across the screen that day, December 14, 2012, I'll never forget it. And I knew right then and there that I needed to take what I learned in the years prior to using situational awareness and teach. And I found a way to do it. And when I became certified, qualified, authorized to teach, it opened up a whole new world, because now I have all these people that are coming to me and seeking the knowledge that I have, and I'm able to do it. And
What a gift.
a blessing. A blessing and a gift at the same time. And I firmly believe it, because the people who have seen me, who have been part of my classes, it's a whole different mindset at that point. It truly allows for me to flourish, to be exactly where I need to be, who I need to be, and at the same time impart that knowledge to others, that if I can help save somebody's life because of the knowledge that I parlayed to them, then I've done my job in this world.
Amazing.
Seriously, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, I think that the world is definitely a better place having you in
Well,
it.
thank you very much. Same with you.
Thank you. So we are going to post all of your contact information, but for anybody that's just listening and they want to reach out to you, how do they find you?
Just call me at the office, 631-351-6473. It's Guardian Security Training. We're located in Deer Park at 940 Grand Boulevard. Our office hours are typically Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 5:30. And if you stop by late at night and I'm there, just knock on the door and I'll open up and let you in.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Matthew.
It's good to see you so much, seriously.
The power of connection is strong with you.
Well, 100%. 100%.
So great. We have to do this more often.
Absolutely. Invite me back again anytime.
We will.
Thank you.
That's it for the power of connection. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.